You wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, exercise, journal, and tackle your most important tasks before most people have had their first cup of coffee. You've optimized your workspace, your diet, your sleep, everything. And yet something's still missing. Your creative output has plateaued, and you're working harder, but not necessarily better. I recognized this pattern in myself when, despite doing everything right, my business started declining. The solution wasn't another productivity system or more discipline, it was strategic laziness. In this video, I'll share exactly how I structured a 72-hour experiment that seemed counterintuitive but led to my most significant breakthrough in years, and how you can replicate these results in your own life and work. Have you ever considered that your obsession with productivity might actually be your biggest liability? 6 months ago, I discovered this mind-bending paradox in the most painful way possible. My content agency, a business I'd built from nothing over 5 years, was hemorrhaging clients. Our creative output had plummeted to embarrassing levels. And the kicker, I was working harder than I ever had before. 80-hour weeks had become my new normal. I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m. to review metrics before my team even stirred from sleep. Lunch breaks were for people who didn't want success badly enough. My productivity system had multiple layers of redundancy: digital trackers, physical journals, and hourly check-ins with myself. I was a productivity machine, and my business was dying because of it. The harder I pushed, the worse things became. Client deliverables started missing the mark. Team creativity evaporated. Our work became technically correct, but soulless. The kind of content that checks all the boxes but moves nobody. In my desperation, I doubled down on what I thought was the solution: more hours, more focus, more discipline. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. Here I was, someone who'd built an entire career teaching others how to optimize their performance and productivity, completely unable to solve my own productivity crisis. My doctor had actually warned me about burnout 3 months earlier. I remember laughing it off. Burnout is just a fancy word for weakness, I told him. I just need to push through this plateau. The breaking point arrived during a crucial presentation to our biggest client, a company whose contract represented nearly 30% of our annual revenue. I'd rehearsed this presentation for days. I knew every slide, every data point, every persuasive angle. But when the moment came, my mind went completely blank. Not just momentary hesitation. I'm talking about 45 seconds of absolute silence as 20 executives stared at me through the Zoom screen. I still wake up in cold sweats thinking about it. That catastrophic failure forced me to confront a possibility I'd been aggressively avoiding. What if working harder was actually the problem, not the solution? In desperation, I began researching alternative approaches to performance and creativity. What I discovered challenged everything I thought I knew about productivity. Neuroscience research from Stanford University showed that constantly engaging your brain's focused thinking mode, the way I had been for months, actually blocks access to your diffuse thinking network, which is where innovative connections and insights emerge. This explained why my best ideas throughout my career had always come in the shower, during walks, or while falling asleep, never while staring intensely at my computer trying to force creativity. Yet, I'd been doing exactly that for months, wondering why the well had run dry. I dug deeper into studies on high performers across fields, from Nobel Prize-winning scientists to renowned artists. A pattern emerged that contradicted conventional productivity wisdom. Research from the University of California found that periods of apparent idleness weren't just beneficial for creative problem solving, they were essential. These lazy periods allow the brain to make non-obvious connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, the very essence of creative thinking. The concept that ultimately changed everything for me was this: strategic idleness isn't about being lazy in the traditional sense. It's about creating intentional space for your brain to work in an entirely different mode. It's recognizing that your conscious, focused mind is just one part of your cognitive toolkit, and often not the best part for solving complex creative problems. What high achievers resist most, taking genuine breaks from their work, might be exactly what stands between them and their next level of performance. The relentless drive that gets you to initial success becomes the very obstacle preventing you from reaching extraordinary success. With my business on the line and nothing left to lose, I designed what felt like career suicide, a 72-hour experiment in structured laziness. I created specific parameters to test whether strategic disengagement could save not just my creativity, but my entire business. The first 6 hours of forced laziness felt like I was violating some fundamental law of success. My heart raced, my mind screamed that I was sabotaging everything I'd built. But what happened by hour 36 would reveal the most counterintuitive productivity mechanism I've ever encountered. I had established clear rules for this experiment. Absolutely no checking email, no productivity apps, no business books or articles. And this was the hardest part. No feeling guilty about any of it. The parameters were designed to create a complete mental separation from work. I even had my assistant change my email password and instructed her not to give it back until the 72 hours were complete. Day one was physically painful. My body reacted as if I was detoxing from a powerful addiction. I paced around my apartment, repeatedly reaching for my phone out of habit, only to remember I deleted all work apps. The anxiety was overwhelming, a persistent, nagging sensation that valuable opportunities were slipping away with each wasted hour. Around the 5-hour mark, I nearly gave up, convincing myself this experiment was just self-indulgent nonsense that successful people couldn't afford. I forced myself to stick with it by engaging in activities I hadn't allowed myself in years. Watching mindless reality TV, taking aimless walks without my phone, and staring at clouds from a park bench for an entire hour. The guilt was crushing. Every fiber of my being screamed that this was career suicide. Then came the morning of day two. I was eating breakfast, not thinking about anything work, when my brain spontaneously offered a solution to a client messaging problem I'd been wrestling with for weeks. I grabbed a napkin and started scribbling, the ideas flowing effortlessly. This wasn't the forced creativity I'd been attempting during my marathon work sessions. This was different. The ideas were clearer, more cohesive, and honestly better than anything I'd produced in months. This pattern repeated throughout the day. During a mindless TV show, my brain suddenly connected two separate business challenges in a way I'd never considered. While taking a shower, I conceived an entirely new service offering that addressed the exact pain point that had been causing client attrition. The breakthroughs kept coming, but only during or immediately after periods of complete mental disengagement. By day three, I'd filled a notebook with more actionable ideas than I'd generated in the previous month of intense work. One of those ideas, a framework for scaling content creation that maintained quality while reducing production time, eventually became our agency's flagship offering, responsible for a 42% increase in revenue. What I was experiencing has a neurological explanation. When we stop demanding output from our brains, the default mode network activates. This brain state only emerges when we're not focused on external tasks, creating the perfect conditions for spontaneous idea generation and problem solving. My frantic 80-hour work weeks had been suppressing the very mental state I needed to save my business. I became obsessed with understanding this phenomenon. I developed a measurement system to track my creative output before, during, and after periods of strategic disengagement. The results were undeniable: a 340% increase in viable business ideas during structured periods of idleness compared to my previous all work all the time approach. What I've discovered is that strategic laziness isn't random. It requires intentional design. I eventually codified specific parameters, technology boundaries, environmental triggers that signal to my brain that it's safe to disengage. And most importantly, predetermined measurements to assess the quality of insights generated during rest periods. The relationship between work and rest isn't just complementary, it's symbiotic. The quality of your creative output during work is directly proportional to the quality of your rest periods. Most high achievers completely miss this critical connection, treating rest as a necessary evil rather than a strategic advantage. This approach requires a complete mindset shift. Instead of seeing rest as time away from productivity, you must recognize it as an essential component of the productivity cycle itself. The most successful professionals aren't those who work the most hours. They're the ones who structure their disengagement as strategically as they structure their work. I've discovered that the most revolutionary productivity hack isn't about optimizing every minute, it's about embracing strategic emptiness. This isn't just a nice theory, as Dr. Isabel Moreau explains. Boredom and laziness should be used as a means to regain control over one's own body and one's own time. This reframing changed everything for me. Your cognitive wiring is unique, which means your rest periods must be customized accordingly. Research shows that when your mind wanders freely, you think about your long-term aspirations 14 times more frequently than during forced concentration. This is the hidden mechanism behind breakthroughs. I challenge you, design your own 72-hour experiment. Document everything, not just what you produce afterward, but what emerges during those periods of apparent nothingness. Remember, we're not pursuing laziness for its own sake. We're creating the precise conditions where your brain can access its most powerful capabilities, the ones that remain dormant when you're constantly pushing forward.